It's time to announce my next challenge. But first, we need to rewind.
I was born and grew up here in Edinburgh.
Rugby was a huge part of my life, but after 3 concussions in a short space of time, that was it. So I discovered training solo and shifted my focus from rugby to lifting weights, specifically powerlifting, where I took part in my first meet in 2014. And not long after that, I started university here in Durham, living in these halls just behind me here. I'd chosen the subject for prestige, not passion. At the same time, I'd lost the team sport environment that had shaped me for years. My hallmates just on that second floor up there, Brad, Henry, Lydia, Roz and Poppy, all wonderful people, but we just didn't have a huge amount in common. On my walks to the gym, I felt isolated, lonely and like I'd failed. The lack of a powerlifting or weightlifting community only deepened that feeling, and my attempts to formally create one were unfortunately met with endless red tape. That spiral was fueled by my warped definition of success and what I believed masculinity to be. Towards the end of my first term, I made a friend called Tom in the gym up there. Through him, I connected with like-minded people at different halls that I'm still friends with today. But inside, I felt like an imposter, like a failure, weak for needing their support when it seemed like they didn't struggle. I hid it all. Smiles on the outside, turmoil, really, on the inside. Then came another challenge. Housing. UK university estate agents push students to sign contracts within the first term, so by the time I'd met Tom and Charlie, they were already committed. So I was left with a choice: live alone in second year, risking further isolation, or move to Newcastle, only a short train journey away, to live with friends from Edinburgh. I chose Newcastle, moving into this flat up there in September 2015. At the time, avoiding isolation, escaping failure, and having access to a better gym felt more important to me than staying in my university city. But it didn't take long to realise that things were only getting worse. And then came the guilt. I had a roof over my head, that one specifically, loving family, friends, and an able body. On paper, everything really, but I still felt worthless, pathetic and like a failure. I hid it all, determined no one would know how unhappy I truly was. Looking back, I'd been depressed since October 2014, although I only really unpacked this with a professional in 2018. My definition of success was cliched and linear. Best grades possible, for the best uni possible, for the best job possible, for the best promotion possible, for the best house possible, for the best car possible. And my perception of masculinity was the same. No emotion, no vulnerability, no weakness, provide, succeed, end of story. Not because anyone close to me had taught it that way, but because that's what I'd absorbed from society, I guess. If you would have asked me before February 2016 whether I even believed in mental health, the answer would have been a resounding no. Depression? A convenient excuse for the lazy, emotional, or weak. Until it hit me. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't train, I couldn't focus, and I could barely even get myself out of bed. And instead of seeking help, I withdrew further, because men shouldn't feel this way, and I was a man. By exam season, I realised a full week had passed without speaking to anyone at all, other than a Tesco checkout cashier or a barista. That's when disillusionment turns into despair, and rationality turned into irrationality. My memory of that period of time is hazy, but one thing is clear, and that is that the despair, the isolation, the desperation all culminated here, in this flat on the 9th of May, 2016, when I attempted suicide. No note, no message, no phone call, nothing. A loving family, loyal friends, and a life worth living that I chose to leave behind. When I came around, slumped up against my bed in there, my brain was working, but my body wasn't. And my very first thought wasn't regret, it was anger. Anger at the fact that the one decisive action I'd taken to end my pain hadn't worked. That's how far gone I was, and how disconnected from reality I'd become. Despite the love and support available, I chose death. And to this day, I still struggle to comprehend that reality. Every moment since, everything I've experienced and achieved, almost gone, just like that. And yet in that moment, I felt more ashamed of myself than ever for all the wrong reasons. Whether you believe in fate or not, what happened next pushed me a little closer to believing. I got a message from my powerlifting friend, Andy: "I'm getting a puppy from this litter, you in?" He probably just knew that we both love Frenchies and was perhaps just flexing on me that he was getting one. But that question sparked something within me, an opportunity, a way out. A dog meant routine, responsibility, purpose, and most importantly, companionship without judgment. 2 weeks later, with Andy lending me money and my student loan emptied, we picked up Odysseus and Titan. Odie, or Odysseus when he's in trouble, his government name, fell asleep in my lap on the way back from Newcastle, and I caught myself smiling. And I caught myself shedding a tear or two because it was the first genuine smile that I'd had in about 18 months. Today, Odie, or the pig dog as he is belovedly known, is 9 years old, and he has a sister, Harley, who, I'll be honest, runs the show. Titan sadly passed away earlier this year, and I know how hard that hit Andy, the same friend who helped me through my darkest days. The difference that the pig dog made was immediate, and to be clear, I'm not suggesting that a French bulldog puppy is the solution to a mental health crisis, because they're stubborn, expensive, and fart a lot more than the internet tells you. It doesn't normally do this, I swear. Pig! What? That is Oscar-worthy performance from Pig there. That is unbelievable. But there was a moment where Odie was walking off lead, not because I'd trained him, but because he was so afraid of leaving my side. And I muttered to him, we're gonna be, fuck! And I muttered to him, we're gonna be okay, aren't we, Pig? And then I almost immediately panicked, wondering if anyone had heard me admit out loud for the first time that I wasn't okay. But that sentence was freeing, as it admitted out loud to myself, first and foremost, that I wasn't okay, and maybe, with this guy by my side, things could be. I moved back to Edinburgh that summer, worked full-time in a cocktail bar, and stayed in that flat up there with Andy and Titan. I felt like myself again. My training was back online, my routine was back, my confidence returned, and whilst there were still some unresolved challenges, I was happy. The Durham lads that I mentioned earlier, Tom, and Charlie, we moved into this flat in October 2016, and I really enjoyed my final year here.
As a side note, the pig dog used to park himself in the window, looking down onto the street.
And the only thing that gave me more joy than watching people spot him from the street was when he spotted me and went sprinting to the door. I left university with a 2-1, having recovered my grades in my final year. Graduated on Friday and started work in London on the Monday. A short final summer holiday. I was lucky to be able to couch surf with friends the first couple of months that I was here, enough to pay Andy back and to save for a rental deposit. I joined Heineken UK's Fast Track Graduate Sales Scheme right here, 3 months of assessment for 1 job. It dragged on to 6, but ultimately I managed to secure the role and joined the full-time sales team here in London. A job built around booze led to some bad habits.
But lifting stayed my constant, commuting from Brixton to Alperton to train at Genesis Gym. Then everything changed.
I sat down in this cafe, opened my laptop, white noise, heart racing, panic. One part of my brain said, don't be soft, just get on with it. But another shouted louder, you've been here before, don't make the same mistake twice. So that morning I asked myself, what am I missing? It was a sense of purpose, of fulfillment.
I wasn't happy with my job, my life outside of it, or even my training goals. So I started building a new purpose.
What am I good at? Squatting. What cause matters to me? Movember. What challenge? Well, to squat 500,000 kilos in 24 hours to represent the 500,000 deaths by suicide in men every single year, obviously. Up there, in my flat at the time, I called Movember, and they connected me with Ozzy, who's been my contact there ever since. So I set up a fundraising page, launched an Instagram, and drafted my announcement. The next day, I went public, and my why was simple: to raise funds and awareness for men's mental health and suicide prevention. The response blew me away. Messages from friends, family, old teammates, even people I'd lost touch with. Gratitude, support, connection. What began selfishly as a way to find purpose again, maybe even as a bit of a PR stunt for Andy's new gym, became something far bigger. Those messages stripped away my fear, my shame, my sense of failure. They showed me I wasn't alone. And they gave me the confidence to share my own story, which has changed my life ever since. By balancing a literal feat of strength with what I once thought of as a weakness, I took my power back. And so, my training began. Long story short, my MCL gave out after about 125,000 kilograms and 5 hours of constant squatting. But we'd raised nearly 25,000 pounds and made a real impact. In the years since, I've taken on more challenges for the same cause, raising over 100,000 pounds for Movember. Those years gave me purpose, exploring my limits and chasing performance. But in 2024, I slipped backwards a little bit, depressed, somewhat lost again. Coming out the other side, I see where things went wrong, where my purpose drifted, and I know now the impact I want to have. I want to change men's lives through movement, the same way that movement has changed mine. So, in 2025, I will be taking on my biggest and most interactive challenge to date. 10 years on from my suicide attempt and my second chance at life, I will be attempting 10 iron distance triathlons in 10 days in 10 cities, aiming to raise funds for 10,000 potentially life-saving phone calls, alongside getting as many of you moving as possible. Each 3.8 kilometer swim will be in a 50-meter pool. Each 180 kilometer bike ride will hopefully be on a motor circuit, and each 42.2 kilometer marathon will be on an athletics track. All private use and all with the intention of getting as many of you along as possible for as much or as little as you'd like. Edinburgh, Glasgow, Belfast, Dublin, Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Cardiff, Bristol, London. 10 cities starting on April the 30th, 2026 and finishing 10 days later on May the 9th, 2026. 10 years on from my suicide attempt. This isn't about my individual performance, it's about participation. It's about coming together to send a message that we're not alone, that we're stronger together, and that we can have a collective impact on the crisis that many of us are or have been facing. So, with that in mind, if you are UK based, or in fact if you are not UK based and you would like to be involved at some point across the 10 days, then please put in your information via the link in the description down below. There'll be opportunities for volunteers, there'll be opportunities for interaction, there'll be lots of stuff going on that we're going to try and keep you as in the loop as possible with. I'm of course going to be documenting the whole training, planning and execution process right here on YouTube, and I can honestly say this is the most excited I've been about a project in a long, long time. I hope you're excited. I may have lost my marbles, but ultimately I really do want this to be a powerful mechanism for change, for interaction and for impact, because that's what I care about most. But most importantly, please let me know down below if you're keen to get involved, as well as registering to that link. 10 iron distance triathlons in 10 days in 10 cities to raise funds for 10,000 potentially life-saving phone calls. It all starts from here.